I paid for an all-in-one bus ticket that drove me around Peru for 1 week to see the different highlights around the country. In this video, I'm going to tell you how that trip went, the highlights, the lowlights, and things I wish I knew beforehand. This video will have my honest opinions, some of which are negative. So if you're someone who gets offended at even the slightest of criticisms, keep it moving. This video is not for you. For everyone else who wants to know how it actually was, the real truth about how it was, stick around. I'm going to tell you everything I have to say about the trip. And hey, I'm David, and this is part 4 in my series of talking about my travel experiences from the past year of travel since I've quit my job. I have a lot more stories to tell coming up as well, so if you're interested to hear about all the things I've been up to, feel free to subscribe below. If you don't want to subscribe, that's fine. Drop a like on this video. I hope you enjoy it. Now, let's get into it. Was my bus ride a great way to see the country, or was it a big mistake? So just a little background information about the trip in general. It's from a company called PeruHop, a really well-known tourist travel agency within Peru. They do a lot of different bus rides around the country. There's different variations. There's also ones that take you to Bolivia. So for me, I chose this one that you see on the screen here. It goes from Cusco and ends in Lima, and it takes about 7 days. You can do more or less, but I did it in exactly 7 days. I was going pretty much the backwards way from what people usually do. Most people fly into Lima and then take the bus from Lima to Cusco. I flew into Cusco and I took the bus from Cusco to Lima. What this meant for me is that my bus for the majority of the trip was like 40% full. I had plenty of space on the bus at all times. There was never any issues with finding spots for my bags. There was never any issues sprawling out and getting comfy on the seats, which was great. Now, on to the first day. So they give you a wristband. I got a red one. There was people getting green ones. So if you are going on a certain route, they gave you a certain wristband. And they didn't explain this super well at the beginning. So it was like 9 o'clock at night. I'm a little tired already because I had already been up a lot the day before going to see Machu Picchu. It took a long time to get to my hotel, so I didn't get much sleep. So I'm a bit groggy already. And the guides at first were not helpful at all. I didn't even know that we had guides. So that's something to note. Like, I wasn't clear who's running the show. So I got on a bus. I was like 50% sure I was on the right bus because they asked, like, where are you going to next? And I was like, I'm going to Puno, which is where Lake Titicaca is. I'm going there. Some people were going to Bolivia. So if you got it wrong, you end up in a different country. Then the bus ride starts, and it was not good. Like, the first impressions were bad. And I was thinking, oh no, like, what have I got myself into? So the first big problem was it's an overnight bus ride, which I knew. So like the first 2 days I knew going into this are going to be brutal because it's 2 nights of sleeping on the bus. I've never really tried that, so I thought maybe it would be okay. It was my first time trying to sleep on a bus. If you've never tried, don't. It's not good. And what made it worse? 2 things made it worse. One, the bus driver on this first bus did not turn the AC on for whatever reason, the heater on, and it was cold. Like, all I had was a light jacket. I was wearing shorts because I wasn't expecting it to be cold on the bus, and I was freezing. I was wrapped up in a little ball in my jacket trying to curl up and stay warm. The guide had blankets to hand out. I learned this after I got off the bus because the lights turned on and I saw them, but the guide didn't give out the blankets. So I was blanketless, cold, trying to sleep. So that's problem number 1. Problem number 2 were the roads. Problem was there's speed bumps. It seemed like every 5 to 10 minutes, the bus would have to slow all the way down, and the driver's not like gently slowing down. They're like slowing down and then hitting a speed bump, 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 bump. So if you're trying to sleep, like, you're getting interrupted every 5 to 10 minutes by the bus throwing you forwards from slowing down and then ka-donk, getting jolted as you go over the speed bump. That was a nightmare. And then I had to switch buses at like 2 or 3 a.m. quite late in the night. And luckily, I got lucky on the second bus. The guide was super nice. They explained what's going on. They confirmed that I was on the right bus. They turned on the AC. This bus had blankets. Like, okay, the second bus made me feel a lot better because it made it seem like people knew what they were doing. They were communicating well. They had the AC on. I was comfortable. Everyone was sleeping. So bus number 2, things started to get better. And then I arrived in Puno. And this is just going to be an honest take from what I saw. Puno, kind of a dump. It just wasn't that great. If you're there to see Lake Titicaca, I'm pretty sure that's the only thing you're going to be in Puno for. Like, I don't know why else you would go there. There's not much to see. The residential area around there is not very developed. There's not a lot for a tourist to do there. The city center is quite small. Like, there's one nice area around like the main plaza where there's a street with a bunch of restaurants and bars and hotels and hostels, stuff like that. That's very small. It's like one street, one square. The hostel that they dropped me off at was also a bit sketchy. Apparently, they're kind of scammy. Luckily, I didn't have any problems. All I had to do was pay for breakfast. It was fine. I got some eggs and toast, and it did the job. It was basic. But you arrive at 5 a.m., so all you have to do there is sit for a few hours until the tour is actually ready to come get you, because the tour doesn't start until like 7:30. So that's a bit of a bad thing. First impressions of Puno was like, okay, hope it doesn't go like this. And then I get to Lake Titicaca. It didn't get any better from there, I'll be honest, because the lake surprised me a lot in terms of how nasty it was. I learned this after the fact because I asked around. I was like, what is going on? But there is sewage pumped into the lake, raw sewage from the surrounding cities around Puno. Untreated, just poop from a pipe, blump, straight into the water. So the marina where you get on the boat is disgusting. It smells terrible. The water's brown. There's trash floating. There's dead fish because the water's so polluted. The fish can't even survive. And I was just like, oh, come on. Like, something's got to go right here. Like, something's got to get better. And it didn't, because there was another thing here that went wrong. Our boat driver, we were waiting on our boat driver to show up and waiting. And we saw other boats getting on and going, and we were still on the dock waiting. It was maybe 30 minutes past when we were actually supposed to go. And I don't have anything to protect from the sun there, so I'm trying to stand in any shade I can get, wearing my hat, sunscreen, whatever, but the sun there is super strong, so we're kind of melting, burning in the sun. And eventually a guy shows up and we get on a boat. The boat was not the best, and the captain finally explained like what was going on. I asked while we were going on the trip like what the delay was, because I was sitting front seat right behind the captain, and captain was kind of joking, thought it was funny. It kind of was funny, to be honest. Important to know, we were there on November 1st. Why is that important? Well, because October 31st is Halloween. And for whatever reason, in Puno, they had a big Halloween party where all the boat drivers there went out and got super hammered. So our originally scheduled boat captain was too hungover to show up. So they had to call in someone else last minute to come take the group of us around on a boat. That's something to know. If you're going to be there after a major holiday, you might have to consider that your boat drivers are going to be super hungover and might not show up for work. Something you have to deal with. And luckily, Lake Titicaca wasn't all bad. So the smaller part of the lake on the Puno side is where most of the pollution is trapped, because there's a kind of like an opening, a mouth that opens up to the wider, deeper part of the lake. And once you get to there, the lake turns actually quite beautiful. It's blue water, it's clear. You have a good breeze, so the air seems fresh. The sun is so strong because you're really high up, really high elevation, so you will get sunburned immediately, which I did, but it actually becomes quite pretty out there. The first stop that we took was very tourist, gimmicky kind of stop. I didn't like it that much, but it was at least interesting to see. So they stop you at these islands where they're built out of reeds, and they're floating islands where people have lived for hundreds of years on floating reeds in the middle of the lake. So that alone is interesting to see, and that's a fascinating way that humanity has managed to make a civilization there. But the stop itself was just pretty much an excuse to tip those families, which is fine. I mean, they have to survive somehow, but it wasn't great. Like, they showed you a few things made of straw. They invite you into their home, like into their actual home. I don't know. It didn't feel right to just like go into their home where they sleep, but they insisted, and they grab you by the hand with the little kids. The little kids grab you by the hand and drag you around into the places. And then it's supposed to be an optional where you're offered a ride on their boat Cadillac, which is just a reed boat, a big reed boat that they have. I thought it was optional, and it ended up not really being optional at all. So everyone had to get on, basically. And then, of course, you have to tip or pay for the boat ride. So that was kind of annoying. And also, it wasn't even the adults like paddling the boat. It's a canoe, and we have 12 people on board, quite heavy. And you need someone to paddle around to get the boat to go to the reeds on the little side and then come back. Well, they had kids. The kid was maybe 10 years old, and he wasn't strong enough to paddle us. So we ended up getting stuck. We floated, drifted into the reeds. There's 3 other kids on board, snot nose, wiping their snot hands all over everything. They were nice. They were friendly. But yeah, that was super weird. I don't know. It seemed kind of like child exploitation. I don't know. It didn't seem great. And then they ended up having to get a motorboat anyways to come tow us back because the child wasn't strong enough to row the boat full of 12 people, obviously. So the floating islands, for me, miss. Like, not great. Interesting concept, but like you could see it from the boat and be just as happy as you would be if you visited on foot on the island like I did. Next up, the boat kind of drove around for a few hours, stopping at 2 other islands. One was just to take a small walk around the island, see it, and that was fine. I have some nice views from that island I'll show you right now. And then the boat stopped at another place where we had a meal. It was a pretty place to have a meal. It was a beautiful house overlooking the lake. We had trout from the lake, which I was like, is this fish from the shallow side or the deep side? Because if it's from the shallow side, I am not going to eat it. It's disgusting. They said it's from the deep side. I didn't die, so maybe it was. But yeah, if you're offered fish, I would only eat it if it's from the deep end. And some point along the way, every time we would stop the boat, stop the boat to get on the island, stop the boat to get on the reeds, the boat barely ran and it died quite a bit. The engine just wouldn't run. So our boat driver would hop back into the engine bay while the engine is running. There's no one steering the boat, and he's trying to sit there with the running engine to try to do something to get the engine to run better. Belts and everything right here. He has a long sleeve on. I have a video of it. I'll show you. Luckily, they were able to get it to limp through most of the day. It started out at 1 power level, and it definitely decreased to where it was maybe 50% power by the end of the day. It couldn't really get back up and go, but it was going. And we got lucky because there was another group with us that was on a different boat that the boat just died. And the boat died early on, before they made it to the opening, which takes them to the deeper part of the lake. So they were stuck in the shallow, nasty part for many hours before someone came to get them. They basically missed out on the whole tour. They almost missed making it back to the bus because no one came to get them for so long. So if you're going to do a Lake Titicaca boat cruise and you're doing it through PeruHop, like maybe it's 50-50. Maybe I just was there on a bad day because it was after Halloween. I don't know. But if you're doing it solo, maybe spend a little more. Get a nicer one. So after the boat ride, we got off the boat, got back in the van, and they took me back to the same hostel that I got picked up at. But we got dropped off at like 3 or 4 p.m., and we didn't get back on the bus until 9-something p.m. So I had another long period of time to kill, and I went and got dinner somewhere. The dinner was actually great. This is my first time trying trout carpaccio, and was impressed. It was good. So there's something good about Puno. It had a great meal. The city center itself was pretty. I saw it at a nice sunset hour, so you could see the church with a beautiful sky. That was good. And there was some sort of festival happening, so I stopped and watched some people dance around and sing and stuff for a bit. And then another overnight bus ride. However, this is where the trip starts to go on the up and up, because the bus that I got on leaving Puno was with my guide, Lorenzo, who I would have with the rest of the trip, which was fantastic because Lorenzo was a great guide, and the people that were on the bus were also very nice, very friendly. There is no getting around the fact that sleeping on the bus sucks, though. So you're taking an overnight bus ride again from Puno to Arequipa, and again, you're arriving at 5 a.m. So you get to choose for this one wherever you're staying, your accommodations. I chose a hotel. A lot of people choose a hostel, but after 2 nights of barely sleeping, maybe 30 minutes or an hour each time, I was ready for a good night's sleep. So I booked a nicer hotel. It was called QP Hotel, and it was great. I arrived at 5 a.m., and the guy was like, you're going to have to wait for quite some time. And I was like, that's okay. So I waited in the lobby. They were nice enough to let me wait in the lobby there. Gave me a bottle of water, so that was nice. And I waited until 8 a.m. until a cafe opened up nearby. And then I went to the cafe, got a fancy coffee, a nice bowl of granola and fruit and stuff. And then I got a text from the hotel early. It was like 11 o'clock maybe, that my hotel room was ready. Boom! Fantastic. I went, checked in, immediately took a shower. Like first thing, because 2 days of bus funk building up on your body from not showering and doing all that stuff, it was gross. Like, it's a gross feeling. And the shower felt amazing. And then after the shower, I was feeling a bit refreshed, so I went and got lunch, immediately treated myself to a steak lunch because I deserved it from snacking light stuff on the bus for so long. And that was it. First day was pretty chill. Walked around Arequipa, which I ended up really loving. The city was lovely, beautiful, white stones. Kind of reminds me of almost a European vibe. I mean, some of the cafes, like if you look at this picture of the cafe, you would think that's somewhere in Europe. But no, it's in Arequipa, Peru. So it was a beautiful city. And the first night I slept, I think 12 hours, something like that. I don't know. I have a screenshot. Let me show you the screenshot. I was in hibernation. It was fantastic. That was the best night of sleep I think I've ever had. The next day, I was just exploring Arequipa on foot, like I usually do for places. I walk around as much as possible. So there was one place that was super touristy that I had to try called Alpaca World. Pretty much exactly what it sounds like. They have a few llamas and alpacas out front. You could feed free, which was cool. I fed an alpaca. This one actually ate my grass, unlike the ones in Cusco. And then you get to basically just freely walk around like almost a museum type thing where they show you different machines for processing the wool, different wool products that they've made. And of course, at the very end, there's like a shop, a storefront where you can buy really expensive alpaca clothing items. I didn't buy anything because I don't got money like that, but it was at least interesting to see, good to pass the time. So there's another super touristy thing I did called the Mirador de Yarawana, I think is how it's said. But it's some arches, looks pretty, and then it looks out at the volcano. It's a big volcano by Arequipa, if you didn't know. Big one. Big one. And yeah, this is just a viewpoint with some arches where you can take a picture there. And for me, kind of a skippable thing because there was just tourist buses full of people that were just getting dropped off, and you're in like the background of 55 other people's different pictures, and everyone's kind of blocking the way. It didn't feel like a super great spot to actually get that viewpoint when there's other places around the city that you also get a great view of the volcano. You just don't have the arches. So I don't know. For me, could skip. But the rest of Arequipa was beautiful, and I loved spending time there, and I actually would go back. I think that's a city that you could spend a few more days in, maybe even a week, a couple weeks, and probably still have things to do there. So Arequipa, good. So after resting and recovering for a bit in Arequipa, we got back on the bus yet again to go to Huacachina. Huacachina is a city, not really a city even. It's just a small place next to another city called Ica. Huacachina is considered like an oasis. So basically all there is like a pond in the middle, a few palm trees, and then hotels and hostels and like one or two restaurants, cafes on a small street. We arrived at night, so I couldn't see anything that was going on, basically. There was terrible traffic. The bus, we got stuck along the road somewhere for a couple of hours because I think rocks had fallen down and blocked the way, and traffic was terrible. So we ended up arriving quite late at night, stayed at a hostel, it was fine, and woke up the next morning to a crazy view. I had no idea. So walked out the door of my hostel room, an amazing, gigantic sand dune, like big sand dune right behind the place. So Huacachina, in terms of beauty, for me, I thought it was amazing because I've never seen a place like that. So that was really, I need more adjectives to say, but it was really nice. So I don't have enough adjectives, but it was good. And then we had the option, you have the option while you're there to do a couple of tours. PeruHop sets you up with like, do you want to do this? Yes or no, yes or no, yes or no. One of them is, do you want to do a dune buggy ride on the sand dunes? Yeah, I do. And there's another thing they included for free. It was a Pisco winery tour, Pisco distillery tour. It's called a winery, but Pisco is like super strong, like 30 to 40% alcohol, so it's kind of a distillery. I don't know. And I expected this to just kind of be boring, like kind of some of the winery tours I've done in other places. Wrong. The Pisco tour there was so fun. It was unexpectedly amazing. Had a great time. The guy at the winery that showed us around was so fun, and the experience for trying stuff was very interactive, and you got to try a lot of stuff. They didn't cheap out. We got to try, I don't know, I think I tried like 15 different kinds of Pisco. I don't know. I ended up drinking a lot, and I left there with a big buzz, and I didn't expect that. But I had a good time, no regrets. And the guy would do a different cheers every time that you tried a different Pisco. So I'm not even going to repeat a lot of them. A lot of them were super dirty, and they were hilarious in the moment, but I don't remember them off the top of my head. There was one where he brought me up, and he was like, show me how you take a shot. And so he pours me a strong Pisco, 37% alcohol Pisco. And he goes, show me how you take a shot. So I go, okay, bonk. And I just take a shot like I would normally. And he goes, did anyone see what he did wrong? And I'm like, what did I do? Oh! Immediately, he had just got done telling us how you drink Pisco, and you have to salute. Salute. You say, salud, cheers to everyone before you drink the Pisco. I did not do that. He got me. He said, how do you drink it? Oh, bonk, I just drank it. No. That's not how you drink Pisco. You say salud. So you greet everyone, you say cheers, and then you drink it. So I had to keep doing it until I got it right. Well, on the second try, I got it right anyway. So I said, salud, and then I took the shot. So there was another one he did that was super fun. You'll see in the video. It's like, we want to know if Lorenzo is drunk.
We want to know if Lorenzo is drunk. Solid shot.
And then you go, stop. And if you pour the Pisco over and a drop falls out, you have to do it again. So we got someone to do it like 3 times because they kept having a shot drop out. It was so fun. If you're going to be in Ica, if you're going to be around Huacachina, I definitely recommend going to this Pisco winery tour place. I'll put the name of it here. It was definitely worth doing. That was an unexpected highlight of the trip. And then after the Pisco, we went back to the desert, to the Huacachina sand dunes, and did a dune buggy ride. So this one was also a highlight of the trip. This was so fun. So you get a dune buggy ride, which is in basically a Jeep, like a big Jeep, not really a dune buggy, like a go-kart that you would probably imagine when I say dune buggy. Seats like 12 people in the back, and it's very powerful, like surprisingly powerful. And the drivers are pretty crazy, so you're actually ripping around on the sand dunes pretty good and hitting jumps, and you don't really get airborne, but like your tummy goes whoop, you know, that feeling of like on a roller coaster, that you get that while you're on the dune buggy. So that was super cool. And then they stop at a couple of places to let you do sandboarding down the mountain. For me, I chose the laying down option, basically just on a piece of wood, and then you go down the hill. Pretty hard to go straight, actually. And for me, I didn't have enough momentum at some point, so I got stuck and had to wiggle and then go down again. But some guy in my group tried to do it on skis, and that was a big mistake. Maybe he was more confident than he should have been, but the dude went down on skis and he face planted hard. I mean, pure scorpion. I'll show a video of it here. He ended up being okay, don't worry. And he even had the confidence to do the skis on the second hill that we did, and he didn't crash on that one. But it was very entertaining to watch, and going down the dune on a sandboard, something worth trying for sure. I would definitely do it again if I could. And then the sunset was beautiful. We got to do kind of a Mad Max drive through the sand dunes with all the other buggies, sand coming off everywhere. The sun is setting, the sky is pink. Like, the sunset in the desert was amazing. That was so cool. So the dune buggy ride in Huacachina, the sandboarding, the Pisco Tour, Huacachina was a huge success. Unexpected highlight of the trip, but that was so much fun. After Huacachina, you go on another bus ride to Paracas, which is a shorter bus ride. It's not that far. So the main attraction there in Paracas is small islands off the coast called the Ballestas Islands. It's pretty much like the poor man's Galapagos is what they refer to it as. The main thing you see there, I mean, there is cool wildlife. I'll say that. There's cool wildlife. But you don't get to get off the boat. It's not a great sightseeing tour. You get to see some cool animals for sure, but pretty boring. I have some cool pictures from it though, so I'll show you a few of the good pictures that I took. Here, and here. Another disappointing part about Paracas is that I signed up for another ATV tour, kind of like the one I did in the Sacred Valley. At least that's what I thought I was signing up for when I got into it. And this one was going through a park that was there, a national preserve where there's a lot of red rocks, and you get to see red sand beaches there. That ATV ride, not good. Because it's kind of a scam, honestly. Like, if you're on an ATV ride, you expect to be going like off-road, you know, on like ATV trails, and you should be able to drive them like you're on an ATV, you know, rip around. This one was boring. We were on a paved road, like the same road that you drive on with cars. You're just on an ATV, and they made you stay in a single file line. You couldn't rip around, you couldn't go fast. They said, slow down, slow down. I'm like, I'm just hitting the gas. Like, I'm on an ATV, I want to go. And they wouldn't let me go fast, so that was a bit of a letdown. This is a tip if you're doing this PeruHop tour. Don't do the ATV ride because you do the exact same tour on the bus afterwards. So I did the ATV ride through the park, saw a couple of viewpoints, and then went back, got on the bus, and the bus did the exact same trip again, and you stop and get off on the bus and see the same viewpoints. So ATV ride, complete miss there. If you're going to do the PeruHop tour, skip that one. But the park itself is pretty, and I got some great pictures from there too. It looks like Mars, that place. So that's crazy. And the beach, the red sand beach, was beautiful. So very pretty place to see. How I saw it, I would probably do differently, but not the worst part of the trip by far. Definitely good, not a highlight. There's one small extra stop you make on the journey back before you get to Lima, and it's at some old slave tunnels. This one I did not like at all. Vibes were not good, very creepy. You're on this old plantation looking place where they housed a bunch of slaves, and you go down into the tunnels where they kept and tortured the slaves, and it's compact, like stuffy space. If you're claustrophobic at all, you'll hate it. And it didn't help that they told us before we went in that there was like a severe earthquake that damaged some of the tunnels and collapsed it, and they've just recently repaired it. So that did not inspire confidence when I'm already feeling a bit claustrophobic and stuffy down in there, to think about, oh, an earthquake could happen and just collapse all of this on top of us. Yeah, didn't like that at all. And also the backstory of like the slavery and the history about it all, and seeing the spots where they would torture people, and it just felt like the energy was bad juju in there. So slave tunnels, not for me. That was pass. Don't want to go back there at all. And then, of course, the last stop on the trip was dropping me off at my Airbnb that I got in Lima. So I was in Lima for about 4 days. Nothing much to report back from in terms of my stay in Lima, because honestly, after a week on the bus of all that go activities, I just wanted to chill. So I picked a nice Airbnb in Miraflores, which is like the safe, recommended area to stay in Lima, and did not do much. I'll be honest. I slept. I watched YouTube videos. I got lunch. Like, just chilled. I walked around to the parks. Didn't do any big sightseeing. Didn't do any major exploring. Just tried to rest and recover, because what was coming up next was my time in the Amazon rainforest. So I knew I had another adventure coming up next, and I just wanted to recover a bit and relax before getting into that next part. Still, though, I thought the area I was in Miraflores was much nicer than I expected. Like, Lima has a bad reputation of being super sketchy and dangerous, and perhaps it is. I don't know. I didn't explore the rest of the city because of that reputation. I just stayed in my little bubble there in Miraflores, and it was nice. Like, the area was nice. The restaurants were good. There was cool parks and stuff to go walk around on the ocean front with dramatic views looking out over the rocks, and paragliders doing stuff in their parachutes over your head. So it was beautiful. It was a great 4 days. It had everything I needed. I was super comfortable there. But yeah, ultimately it was just a relaxation spot. So I don't have much to report back on from my time in Lima. So just to wrap everything up here, do I think the bus ride around Peru was worth it? 100%, absolutely. However, it's not for everyone. It's for a certain kind of traveler. I would say you probably need to be someone young, although there were people on my bus who were older. It's just kind of a more young person activity. It's very go. It's for people who are looking for a lot of action. They don't mind staying in the bare bones accommodations. They don't mind sleeping on a bus. I think it's a perfect young traveler activity. It's not limited to young travelers, like I said, but yeah, I think it's 100% worth doing. The cost is well justified. Peru itself is amazing, so I do think it's worth driving around and seeing all the different sides of Peru. Based on my experience with PeruHop, it made Peru my favorite country that I visited in South America. So I think the experience is definitely worth doing, one of a kind, and the country itself has so much to offer, so much beauty, so much fun. It's something that you really got to get out there and explore, and I think doing it the way I did it is a good option if you're into that kind of travel and you want to explore all of Peru. That said, obviously it's not perfect. I mentioned a bunch of flaws or a bunch of things that didn't go great along the way, so hopefully you picked up some tips of things that you would do differently, like, for example, pack snacks on the bus, pack sunscreen if you're going to Lake Titicaca, skip the ATV tour in Paracas, book a nice hotel or a hotel you'll for sure get a good night's sleep in. If you're going to do the boat tour in Lake Titicaca, get a nicer boat if you have that option. In Lima, I don't have much recommendations for you because I didn't stay there very long. However, for the next upcoming journey, I have a lot to say. You'll want to stick around for the next video because I'm going to talk about my time in the Amazon rainforest in Peru outside of the city of Iquitos. So if you want to hear me talk about that, Definitely subscribe so you don't miss the next video. And then I'm going to talk about my time in Quito, Ecuador. I'm going to talk about my time in Bogota, Medellin, Austin, Bangkok, Da Nang, Hanoi. So lots to look forward to coming up in the future on this channel. I would hope to see you around for the next video. And if you're feeling extra bold, maybe put something in the comments section. Say hey, say what's up, tell me about your time in these places, tell me what you thought. And see you in the next one. Peace.